Day number 2 of Browns training camp has come and gone. It was a very busy Thursday. We heard from both Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, as well as Browns Executive Vice President of Football Operations and General Manager Andrew Berry. Let's begin where we began on Wednesday, and that is with the quarterbacks. Joe Flacco was first up in Team 11 on 11, followed by Kenny Pickett and Dillon Gabriel. No Shedeur Sanders in that particular period. Later on, though, in the red zone drill 11 on 11, Kenny Pickett was first up, followed by Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. No Joe Flacco in that period. Let's begin the best bites of the day with who I believe to be the odds-on favorite to win this competition, Joe Flacco.
I'm not trying to recapture, every season's new in this league. And listen, I've been in the locker room with these guys. I know what they're all about. And it's obviously not the same exact locker room, but there's a lot of really good guys in there that know how to win football games. So that's what gives you the confidence that you can come back here and win games. I don't think it's about trying to recreate anything. It's a new season. Everybody has a fresh mindset, and a lot of the guys in there have a really good one to begin with. They know how to win football games, and that makes you feel good about lining up with them. We had talked and not talked, and you don't know. I'm very excited to be back here.
Yeah.
So to get the call from these guys and learn that they actually did want to bring me back was very exciting, and felt very good about it, obviously. I feel like the last 2 years I really kind of went in pretty optimistic into the off season. But then, the time comes up where you start signing guys and you don't necessarily hear from people. So of course that goes into that kind of enters into your mind. But I don't really think I have like a negative outlook on it. Like there's only so many things. It goes back to that. There's only so many things you can control. And like you can go out there and play the best you can in hopes of giving people that vision of what you can do for them. But if nobody bites, as long as I can look at myself and like have an idea that I did the right things and I'm happy with what I did, you learn that that's what matters, and you can't worry about the decisions of other people. Listen, I think we're all aware of that, and it's not necessarily talked about between the two of us, but you obviously know what you have a little bit of insight as to what they may be thinking and those things. But it goes back to like that's just focusing on like when you're focusing on Kenny or Kenny's focusing on me, and then we're super focused on that in general. It's kind of the wrong mindset to be in to be at your best. So you try to. It's natural for those things to come into your head, but you try to do your best to get them out and just go out there and be with the guys and be in the moment. Talk a lot about how practices are actually structured, but I think what we're talking about is just the mindset, of a winner and a winning football team and what that takes. And it doesn't matter if you're out here for an hour or 3 hours. There's a way that a winning team takes a field and approaches their craft, and I think there's definitely a focus, and you can definitely tell that we're locked in to make sure that happens. It's tough to have expectations. I think there's been some communication between probably all the quarterbacks and Kevin. So I guess I know a little bit what to expect, at least for the next week. But you can't ask me. It's hard for me to tell what it's going to look like 2-3 weeks from now. I think there's like ideal situations, obviously, and then there's just like the reality of the situation. And, it's one of those things that I really don't have any control over, so I'm really not worried about when anything happens. Obviously, there's advantages to knowing, earlier than later, but hey, it's just part of the game. I'm as determined as ever to just be the best quarterback that I can be. And I got it, it's so easy to, and I do it, I'm guilty of it. It's so easy to like look ahead and like picture yourself as the starter and hearing that news and things like that. But I really, like second day of camp, I think the best thing for me is to just stay in the moment and come out here and have fun and like compete and just do what I love to do. I think that's going to be the best way for me to show what I can do and all that stuff. So, I think there's a lot of self-motivation in order to be good at in this league, and that's always there. So I'm just going to continue to approach it like I always do. It's always a battle, man. It's always a battle. It's always one of those things. I think you learn a little bit about. We were having this conversation yesterday in the locker room with a few guys, like just because guys were looking for advice, and I'm not a great giver of advice, but staying in the moment is very important, and you do realize that as you mature, and like you realize the moments, man, like that, why was I in the zone there? And I still don't know if I have the answer, like the perfect answer as to how to stay in the moment. I know staying in the moment is super important, but like the how to actually do that is the grind of it all. And I think the biggest thing to do is just keep your head down, go in that meeting and attack that meeting. Just like remind yourself of being present and really divvying it up and doing one thing at a time.
As I mentioned, Kenny Pickett was first up in the red zone 11-on-11 work. Here's what Pickett had to say about this competition and the mindset it requires not only of him, but the football team.
Consistency. I think that's what, coaches, are looking for. A guy that's consistent, that's the same guy every day that they can count on. They can call any play. They know that we'll get them out of a bad play. If the shot's called and it's not there, we'll check it down. So just, good quarterback play that can help his team win games. Because that's what it's all about. We're all here to win, and that's all I'm concerned about. You got to find ways to steal reps, whether that's on the field watching, when you're not going, watching the other guys in there after practice, staying and throwing the spots that you may not have gotten to, the plays that you weren't able to run. Put receivers in spots and just throw those routes. Work the footwork and work the timing that way. Film room, watching everybody's reps in film. So there's multiple ways that you can do it. I think it's big to get the mental and the physical reps as well. Staying after and doing the extra stuff to get those reps is huge. Like I said, a day at a time. You don't know like what you're going to get that day. You're just kind of showing up and prepared to. I think every guy here is prepared to go play the entire practice. That's kind of how I look at it. You don't know what you're going to get, so. Whatever schedule for that day, I want to make sure that I know everything inside and out. So whatever reps I do get, I can take advantage of it. Yeah, those are huge. Whatever you can get with the guys in live speed, especially going against the defense. Full 11-on-11. Calling the play in the huddle, breaking the huddle, lining up, knowing where guys are going to be, the timing of the play, how each guy runs his route. It all plays into playing quarterback at a high level. So whenever you can get those reps and that experience, it's huge. Yeah, it's definitely more real now. Obviously, the season's almost here. But like in the spring, you're really, it's kind of trial and error thing. You're feeling out the offense. It's a new system for everybody here, so we were kind of working through the kinks of it, I'd say. Having the 5 weeks to train and work at what I know that we were going to do to come back now, and now it's time to sharpen everything up and get ready to go. So I think, the springtime was a great time to work things through, and now it's time to go. You experience so much of life, I think, being an NFL quarterback. You experience the highs, the lows. I have an unbelievable support system that I can lean on, but you just go through so many trials and adversity. You learn a lot about yourself, a lot about the people around you. So I'm grateful for every experience that I've had, because I feel like it made me a better person, a better player today. Yeah, I think the ability just to buy into whatever system you're in. I've been in different systems. I feel like I have the ability to play in a lot of systems with what I can do inside the pocket and outside the pocket. So. Buying into the scheme, buying into what the coaches are telling me to do, and then just leaving it all out there, working hard every day. So it's not going to be done in one day. It's not going to be done in 2 weeks. You got to show up and be your best every single day. So that's really what I'm focused on doing. You have to attack the day and want to be the best player that you want to be. So I think as long as you keep that mindset, whatever the outside perception is of your situation, as a player, that doesn't really hinder my ability to go out there and play at the level that I know that I can play at. It's been awesome. Like, it feels like you're almost like talking like an older brother or something when you're in there. Like, he's a great guy. We're from about an hour from each other, so from the same area. He trained at Test Football for the Combine. That's where I trained as well. So there's some crossover in our past. He went to Pitt. I know a lot of guys that know him at Pitt. And everyone, raved about him, and, everything's held true, to this day. He's a great guy to have in the room. It's another element that I can add. From the competition standpoint, I can't control, what other guys do, just focus on what I can do. And I know that's something that I can bring, to the table, to this offense. And we do a lot of it, which I like.
Not many standout plays on Thursday during practice, and that's to be expected. It is early in camp, a lot of handoffs, a lot of short throws. But we did hear from Andrew Berry before practice, and the first 15 minutes of Berry's availability, quite frankly, were focused on the legal troubles surrounding rookie running back and second-round pick Quinshon Judkins. Barry did concede that Judkins' future, or his immediate future, I should say, with the Browns is, well, to be determined. He remains unsigned, and it's unclear if he's going to be signed anytime soon. The question that I asked Barry, though, is how honest of an assessment are you getting as an organization when you're going through your scouting processes on these college campuses about any potential red flags or character concerns?
I think a big part of the pre-draft process is knowing, who the reliable sources are. But Daryl, when we talk about vetting, it's not about just flying in, talking to a position coach or talking to a support staff. Pretty extensive legal checks, pretty extensive background checks, whether that's with compliance office on campus. We actually employ a third-party company that does all of our security and background. So everything from if a guy has a speeding ticket to something more serious, that's something that's accessible to us. That being said, it's funny, we had Monty McNair in for we used to call it Scout School. It's a football operations summit. Former general manager of the Sacramento Kings. And we were talking about background process. How did you guys go about it with the Kings? And he was saying, one of the things they study is just like anything else, it can be noisy. To your point, where it's okay, how many guys that we identified as, let's say, tough or smart or whatever, ended up actually being that, and the reality that in their sense, things change. But to get back to the broader point, Daryl. It is important to, we have a large web of sources. It is important to know who's reliable, but to leave it at just, maybe hearsay is the wrong term, but to leave it at just an interview on a campus with a coach or an academic advisor, that's not nearly enough, and we use way more resources than that.
Barry was also asked to comment on the 2 excessive speeding violations from rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders that he received in the offseason, and Barry did not hold back.
Not smart, just not smart, and it's something that we've addressed with him. He understands the implications. He understands the consequences, and I think the thing is it's not just about yourself, right? It's not just about having a joyride. It's not just about driving a car really fast, but it's about the fact that you can endanger other people. It's about the fact that if a deer or someone cuts out in front of you, your reaction time, it's just dangerous. And it's not something that we want our guys to be doing. It's not something that they should be doing. And the number one reason is because we don't want some type of catastrophic accident. We saw that, 2 years ago in, Dallas or Houston with a player. And in that incident, everybody was lucky to walk away. And we don't want that occurring with anyone in our organization.
One of the primary questions that Barry ultimately is going to have to answer when the initial 53-man roster comes out, can they and will they keep 4 quarterbacks on the initial roster? Remember, they did it in 2023. It didn't last long because they quickly made a trade to clear room and only keep 3. But this time around, it does sound like Barry is seriously considering going into the season with all 4 quarterbacks on the roster.
We've largely looked at the last 5 spots of a roster as more developmental spots, and that can come from any position. I also think with the roster flexibility nowadays, especially with the elevations that you're able to have on the practice squad, there's just more flexibility in terms of how to build your 48-man game day roster. Where it's maybe not quite as restrictive in the past. Now that being said, when roster rules were more, let's say, draconian, there have been teams that have carried 4. So if there are 4 that are 53-man worthy, and we think it makes the most sense for us to keep them, we will. We look at it as hey, let's have all these guys out there. Let's see how they perform. Let's see what their strengths and weaknesses are, and build an offensive support around the starter when Kevin's ready to name it. I would say more generally to your question, Kevin and I might be the only ones who talk more about the quarterback position than you all, throughout the next couple weeks. And it's something that, we'll talk about consistently. I think you guys know us well enough that, we work really well together in that regard. But at the end of the day, I trust him. You know what I mean? I trust his discretion. I trust our coaching staff in terms of who they want to play, and I think we'll get a lot more information over the upcoming weeks. I think the main difference in that year is we were at 3. So I think I've said multiple times on the record that as long as we have 3 quarterbacks that we think are 53-man worthy, we'd like to keep 3. That was a situation where we felt like the opportunity, again, kind of wrestling with a little bit the short term versus the long term, was too good to pass up. Was too good to pass up in 2023, and we were able to manage it and obviously make the playoffs and everything. But that's maybe a little bit different than where we sit today. If we're in a situation and we receive some trade offer for one of the guys, and we're sitting with 4 guys on the active roster, that might be a different set of conversations and considerations than if we were having 3 planned until literally the last week of the preseason.
Barry was also asked about the potential prospects of Deshaun Watson returning later in the year. He said he learned from past times in talking about injuries or trying to project progress with injuries, and so he just basically said the Browns are going to take Watson's situation pretty much day to day. Tight end David Njoku was back on the practice field following the passing of his father, so it was good to see 85 out there. Jerome Ford is day to day with an undisclosed injury. Michael Woods was not at practice, and also Jordan Hicks absent due to personal reasons. Browns back on the practice field again on Friday. It is also the first practice that is open to fans, so look forward to seeing all of you out here in Berea for that. With the Browns in Berea, I'm Darrell Ryder, Sports Radio 92.3 The Fan.